Hello, I'm Alexander Quinn, Starseed Navigating the Light, and today we have the beautiful, very talented, very linguistical, very spiritual, and very clever in terms of food, the lovely Aurora Ray. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Alexander. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you face to face.
Absolutely, the pleasure's all mine. Now, a lot of people in the Starseed community and a lot of the spiritual forums, you're very well known because you have quite a well-known website, which is the galacticfederation.com. Is that right?
Yes?
We'll get to that in a minute. We've got lots to talk about. I mean, there'll be people who want to know a little bit about you because usually you're behind a computer, but today you're up front. We're getting the real you, we're getting all you, and you've got a beautiful pussycat that looks exactly like the one that I actually have as well, funnily enough. So,
Mm.
um, now, just a quick run through for people that don't know anything about you. You do quantum healing. You got two books out. You got books out on food. You do a bit of channeling. You got your website galacticfederation.com. You shift a little, and you are based in Ibiza, Spain. So you like the sun. You were a major TV food host in Iran, and you've been hanging out with the Galactics and the Federation from an early age. Is there anywhere you want to start, or do you want me to kick it off? Because there's a lot to talk about today.
Go ahead, you kick it off. You take the lead.
All
Oh,
right.
just don't go on the computer. Okay.
So I think what a lot of people would be really fascinated about Aurora is you have this incredible website that a lot of people know about. It gets shared very largely across all the spiritual groups. You're pretty much everywhere. I think the two questions that people would be most interested in just immediately are, first of all, how did you get into the whole world of the Galactics and being in touch with the Galactic Federation? And then maybe down the line, start with a little bit about the website that we all love so much.
Um, okay, let me see. I am a member of the Galactic Federation. I am a commander of their Lyran fleet. And so I came to this planet with a very grand mission, like many of us. And so, since I was a very little child, I think 5 or maybe 6 years old, um, they used to visit me at night, and they would pick me up in my room and take me on the ship and do all kinds of healings with me, teachings and upgrades, and they were just preparing me for what's actually happening now, what started to happen last year. So when I was, I think, somewhere between 9 and 11, I was maybe 9, maybe 10, maybe 11. I knew that something would come. I didn't know it was the internet, but I knew that something would come that would connect all the people in the world with each other, and that we were a soul group, a soul family of people that were here, and that I was not the only one, and I was not going to be alone. But they told me you're gonna have lots of solitude and extended periods of extreme loneliness in your life, but when the time comes, you're not going to be alone. And this thing that I don't remember exactly how they explained it to me, but I knew it was something that was going to connect everybody around the world, similar to the phones. But back then, we didn't even have like smartphones, and there was no internet back then. And there were not even mobile phones yet. Even mobile phones came like 5, 6 years later. I remember the first mobile phone. It was like this size. It was like a little suitcase that you
Yeah.
could carry around with you. It actually was like a suitcase. And my dad, he would put it in his car, and yeah, it was very big. And so that we would connect when the time was right, and that I was going to have some kind of a female leader role in this movement that was supposed to be some kind of a liberation for humanity. So that's what I remember from when I was very little, what they told
And that's fascinating. So you're part of the Lyran
me.
division.
Yes.
because I have some Lyran heritage as well, but it's more of the sort of female, sorry, the
Yeah.
feline sort of quanta, because they have Lyrans that some of them look a little bit feline, and they have a tiger, sort of like a lion, stuff like that going on. So that's how it all kicked off, and then. So to some degree, have you always been in touch with them, and that's how the messages keep coming through and stuff like that?
Not always, but my entire childhood. And I was very spiritual, and not only because of that, but also because of my dad. He was very spiritual. We were a completely non religious family, like the entire family is non religious. I have a Jewish grandmother, and my grandfather was Muslim, but absolutely non religious, the Jewish side as well as the Muslim side. But my dad was very faithful. He was very spiritual, and he had a very strong faith in God. And so he would read spiritual books. Like I remember the Celestine prophecy and Siddhartha, very famous author, German author, whose name I don't remember. I'm not so good with names. I always forget them. Um, so these were the first books. Siddhartha I read when I was 11. That kind of clicked a little bit something. And then when I was 15, I read the Celestine Prophecy. And that was also a very, very important book to read. It's one of the top books in the world, in my opinion, that anybody who's at the beginning of the spiritual journey needs to read this book. It will put things a lot into sense and into alignment. And so I learned how to channel from a friend when I was 15. And she gave me this prayer, how to call my guardian angel, and then do automatic writing. And so that's what I learned when I was 15. And so I was really, really spiritual and really into these practices. And the first book that I read, I was 6 years old. The name of the book was The Little Witch. And I read the book, I think, in 3 days. And then I went to my mom and I said, I'm finished. What am I going to do now? Give me more. And then there was a part 2, and she got me part 2. And so since then, I started to read everything I could find about magic, mystery. That stuff kind of really, really interested me. And so that was my journey, I think, until I was about 20, 21. And that's where life got really serious. And I kind of changed my path a little bit and put these things a little bit to the side. I remember with 19, I read the Bhagavad Gita and things about bhakti yoga and things like this, and about karma and things. But then I put these things a little bit aside and just became a young person that wanted to live life, 3D life, party and boyfriends and dresses and makeup and these kind of things that distract you so conveniently. So I got really distracted for a while, and then my dad got very sick, and my parents were divorced. Our mother abandoned us when we were really young, and so my dad was like my role model. He was my best friend. He was my soulmate. He was everything for me, and I would always sit down and tell him everything and discuss everything with him. He was like the most important human being on earth for me. And then he got severely sick. He got cancer, and he was diagnosed from one moment to the next with terminal cancer. And so the doctors gave him a few weeks. And so we all cried and we were devastated, and we went home. And then my dad got really angry, took his fist and almost smashed the table and said, I'm not gonna die. This doctor is not my God. I'm not leaving you yet. And so we kind of pulled ourselves together as a family, my brother, my dad, and me, and gave our dad as much love as humanly possible. Like before you go to work, I would go make him good breakfast, smoothies, like nutritious stuff. That's where my food education kind of started. And give him massages every day, check in with him several times physically, not on the phone. And then just between work and before work and after work, I would go and visit him and just give him love and give him massages, you know, like healing massages. I would put all my love into massaging his body that was in so much pain, and giving him good food and cooking for him and shopping for him, doing all these things. And so that was really a time in my life where I learned that love is the most powerful force. And my father, who was diagnosed with terminal cancer, who was supposed to live, they said 2 months, 2 weeks, maybe only 2 days. That's what the doctors told us, and we took him to several specialists. And my dad lived another 5.5 years after that. And after 6 months, he felt great. He fell in love. He got married again,
Wow.
and we had a good time the last few years. And then in the end, I think he was just tired of life. He got very depressed, and in earlier years, like 15 years or something before he got sick, and so he fell back into that a little bit, and he didn't want to be in this world anymore. It's really as simple as that, and that's where the body started to really shut down the system slowly but surely. And so, and then he died, my beloved father, which was the most traumatic thing I had to endure in my life. It was very, very hard for me. And that's kind of when this spiritual side of me started to take over again. And by that time, I was 29. And so I could feel he had passed away, and I was there. I was holding his hand while he was taking his last few breaths in the middle of the night. I had slept over in the hospital in the next room. There was an empty room that they gave me because I was begging and crying. I was like, please let me sleep here so I can be near him. And his wife was already occupying the other bed in his room, so they had to give me another room. And so I was with him when he left this earth. And so I really guided him to the other side. I was not aware of what I was doing. I know now what I was doing and how important that was, and what an honor that actually is. So I remember he was gone for a night or two, and I was sleeping on my brother's living room floor on a mattress because I couldn't sleep alone in my own home anymore. I was kind of afraid suddenly of the darkness. And I remember, and I was so devastated, and I was laying there in this embryo position, and then I suddenly felt in that, I can't even put into words the despair and the devastation that I was feeling, that overwhelming sadness. I felt suddenly like it was so powerful. Like my dad, he suddenly came and he hugged me from behind and held me tight, and I could feel him. I could even smell him. His perfume was suddenly, his eau de cologne was suddenly in the room, and he came and he hugged me, and it was as if he was physically there. And I fell asleep, and from then he visited me several times, or still until this day, sometimes I suddenly smell his cologne in my living room when I pass by, and I go like, hi dad, you're here, I love you. And I can feel how he says I love you too, and he comes and goes. And so this is really where it started to come back.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think I cried nonstop for 2 years. And I remember reading a story, and I don't even remember, I think it was an ancient Persian story about someone who cried for God, who was sitting there, and then one day he was crying for God, and then they asked him, why do you cry for God? And he said, because he's alone. He's totally alone. He has nobody. We all have abandoned him, and that hurts me so much. And I kind of felt that so deeply that I started crying for God. And so I was in Iran back then. I lived there for a while after my dad passed, and then I moved to America. And I was really happy because I had fallen in love and I had this cute boyfriend and we were getting along really perfectly, and then we were living in America, and then his father died.
Oh my God.
And that's when you have a mission, then life is going to beat you up. And the more life is going to beat you up, the more important your mission is. And you have to wake up and you have to remember. And that's why life is shaking you. I remember when we were children, sometimes our father would scream at us like they do with teenagers. And then we would say, why do you do this? And he would say, I don't do this because I don't love you. I do this because I do love you and I have to shake you.
Yeah. It's like with a lot of star seeds. I do see this. They'll have a kind of shaking moment within their life that'll kind of enact or kind of shake them into what they came here to do. I know I certainly had one with an accident that happened to me, but a lot of star seeds, they come down here and they kind of go, they can go two different ways. We'll get back to the story in one sec, but they can go the way of they kind of having a good time and they kind of, come down to earth. I want to figure, I want to experience this earth thing loads. Let's really experience it and go way out. And some of them get really carried away. And then a big hand comes in and it kind of just drags them back to, their path. And then some of them have a Saturn return and die, like a lot of the pop stars that we know, the 27 Club. And then other ones are like me and you, who kind of come back around and we had 3D jobs, or we kind of sat and did whatever, or we had, we were doing something behind a desk that we didn't really like, and we always knew there was another calling, but we couldn't quite put a thing on it. And then we went out and then ended up started doing this thing, like, for example, that me and you were doing, and everyone thought we were crazy, but then we transitioned and then we found our tribe, bing, bang, bosh, here we are, and now having this interview. So, yeah, I mean, I totally understand all of that. So going back to your story, so you had like all of these things that were drawing you back to who you really were. And then do you want to continue a little bit about that?
Yeah, very quick, because now it's getting like really juicy. So I had this boyfriend, and then his father died, and then he changed, of course, understandably, from one person into another person, and he got super depressed. And because his father had a sudden heart attack, he was super healthy, and he had a sudden heart attack, and he just died. And from one moment to the next, he had no preparation, and his father was also really young, and so he got really depressed, and things changed, and months passed, and then it was, I think, a year later, and then for a while we didn't see each other. We were living in LA, and I moved to San Diego and lived with my family there. I have a beautiful uncle there, and then I came back and we went camping, and we said, okay, let's pull ourselves together and let's give it another try. And so we went camping. We went to Bakersfield Kern River. I hope he's not gonna watch, but
probably is.
He knows.
Synchronicity. Well, basically, God is going to make sure he's now watching. So he's listening to you right now. Do carry on.
No, we're actually really good friends. He knows I tell this story. I always tell him that this story is a very important story, and I always tell it to everybody. Like,
go for it, and don't hold anything back.
So we went there, and it was the most horrible weekend of my whole life. Okay. Because it was so hot. It's called Kern River, but it's a desert place, and there is one river that is so cold. When you put your foot in there, your bones start aching. It's so cold. And outside it was so hot that you didn't know what to do, and it's desert. There was no tree, there was no shade to hide, and then the only place you could hide was inside the water, and it was so cold. It was torture, pure torture. And so and then on top of all of this, we had a fight. And we had a fight, and then we didn't talk, and he went his way and I went my way. And there were 300 people or 350 people camping on that site, and they were all Persians, and nobody was talking to me because they all thought I'm American. They all thought I'm an outsider, and we're not going to talk to her, we're not going to mingle with her, because usually Persians are very kind and very warm, and they mingle with you quickly and become friends with you quickly, and engage with you and don't leave you alone usually. But they thought I was American, and so they kind of didn't feel like hanging out with me. So I was completely alone the whole weekend. And it's really, really funny. There was only one boy who was American with his girlfriend, and they were the only people who would like sometimes sit next to me and talk with me and hang out with me. And so my boyfriend found another girlfriend.
Oh, dear.
He was just suddenly with this other girl. And so I got really, really sad. And I found the only, I would call it a mountain, but it was a little hill. So I found that hill and I climbed up that hill and I sat on the top of that hill, and that was the only place where I was in total solitude, away from the crowd and the music and all the noise, and by myself. And so I started crying as if there's no tomorrow. And I was sitting there and sobbing and sobbing, and the earth around me, everything had turned into mud because of all my tears. And then I challenged God. So I really called upon God and I said, you know what? I believed in you. My whole life, I had such strong faith in you. My dad had faith in you, so I had faith in you, and I always loved you. I was always a good person. I never did anything wrong. I never hurt anybody. I never did anything bad. I'm just a good person. I was always a good person, and I loved you, and I was so faithful to you. And whoever crossed my path, who was in despair or in sadness or whatever, I always said, trust the divine. Trust, have faith in God, he will guide you, always. And I said, but you're doing this to me? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? And I said, you know, everything and everyone I ever loved in my life, you took him from me. You took my mom from me, she abandoned me. And then I had my dad and you took him from me. And then I loved this boy and you took him from me. And I have like nothing left. And you took everything from me. And when I was a child, my dad was really, really wealthy. And he kind of, because he was so depressed, he lost everything. And then after he had passed away, everything that was left, other relatives came and found a way to steal it from us. And I was like, okay, my loved ones are gone, the money is gone, like everything is gone. And I have nothing. And I've always had faith in you, and you betrayed me. You betrayed me. And I said, you know what? If you exist, you're going to come down here and you are going to show your face to me, because you owe me. You owe me big time. And if you don't show your face to me, I'm going to break up with you. I'm going to be done with you. And I was super serious. I was not kidding. I was so serious.
You still do sound very serious about it. Continue.
Yeah, so I challenged God. That was the day I challenged God. And I think I just cried myself into sleep that night. And the weekend passed, and I went back home and broke up with my boyfriend. That little bit that was left to break up. And I called my cousin and asked him to pick me up. He also lived in LA. And so he picked me up and I went over his place. And while I was camping on his couch for a few days, I befriended that couple, that American couple that was there camping with us. The only two people who gave me some company. And so I befriended them. And then I went on the guy's Facebook. And then there was a post that was somehow translating Jesus's words. And the thing is that my birth name is Salome. And Salome was the stepdaughter of King Herod. And she was a follower of Jesus. And she was actually his best friend. And so I always, although I'm raised in a non-religious family, but I always had the Jesus connection. Always. And he was always, because there are so many prophets, and also in Islam there are so many prophets, I don't know anything about them, and if I don't know anything about somebody, I don't know if I can trust them. But I always trusted Jesus, always, because he was the only prophet who never took a sword, and he never killed anybody, and he never shed any blood. And so I always had this connection, this love for this being. And so there was these words of Jesus translated, and there was the sentence that was saying, my father's mansion has many rooms, my father's house, something like this. And he translated it as equals multidimensionality. And there was a few phrases like this, and they triggered me so badly that suddenly I started remembering that when I was little, hold on a moment, when I was little, there were these starships and all these beings and all these phenomena going on in my life. So many things going on. Like I would literally go into different dimensions and come back, and there was nobody to talk to, and I would get panic attacks since I was like 6 or 7 years old because it was just too much, all of this information, and I didn't know how to handle it. I had nobody to tell that to. And so this is where it really started to come back. That was really, so as you can see, there is a chain of events that somehow don't seem to have anything to do with each other, but they have everything to do
Oh
with.
no, no, no! I think they absolutely have everything to do with one another, because it's like a domino effect. One domino goes over, then that leads to something else, and one domino goes over, then that leads to something. It's a little chain reaction that goes all through your life, and it's actually I know one or two other people that have had not the same experiences that you have, turning dust into mud with tears. Now that's a joke, but on a serious level, you know, it's like you kind of wake up when you're younger. It's like babies who can see angels, right?
Yes.
And then they grow out of it and they can't see the angels anymore, and that's really upsetting. And then you go through the period of life where you're kind of a teenager and stuff, and you just want to have fun, and you know, you don't really care about spiritual stuff, and you just want to go and experience life. And then at some point, the universe kind of turns you around and says, okay, you've had a bit of fun now, but can we get back on track? So it makes perfect sense, your story. And then you basically then at some point then basically brought about the Galactic Federation website that we now know and love.
Well, yeah. One detail I forgot to tell you, and then the story is done. So after I was triggered by what I was reading on this new friend's Facebook page, I had a chat with him, and he said, you know what, because I told him a little bit about my experiences as a child and everything, and I said, so what am I going to do to revive that somehow and get myself back into that? And he said, meditate. And I said, okay. So I started meditating, and I wouldn't say it was the first time, but it was maybe the second or the third time that I sat down in meditation outside in nature. I grounded myself, and then I meditated, and it was as if the earth opened up and swallowed me, and I went down, and which was kind of like a fifth dimensional earth. And it was beautiful, this beautiful nature, undescribable beauty. And then I was walking through this field of flowers, and then far away I saw a woman sitting there, and as I got closer to her, I was like, oh my god, this is like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like, God, this is like, is this real? And then as I came closer, I could see that she didn't have legs, but they were like roots of a tree grown into earth, and her hair was super long, and her eyes were so big and so beautiful, like a deer. And so I came closer to her, and then I was standing there and looking at her, and I was feeling this love she was emanating. It was undescribable. And so I ask her, and I say, who are you? And she says, I am. And I didn't really understand it. I thought she was saying, I am Aya. And I said, Aya? And she looked at me and smiled and said, Gaia.
Ah.
And I was just looking at her and standing there, and I was like, huh, Gaia. I didn't know who Gaia is. I had never heard that name before. And so I was just spending some time with her in this unbelievable love energy, in this unbelievably beautiful place. And when I came back from meditation, I thought I had gone crazy. I was like, okay, now you're legit crazy. And I sat down on my computer and went on a web search, and I said, who is Gaia? Enter. And the result popped up and said, Gaia is the mother goddess of earth. And I was like, holy shit. Whoa. And so I realized that day when I challenged God and I said, come here and show your face to me. And if you don't show your face to me, I'm going to break up with you and I'm going to be done with you. And I'll never mention your name again. I'll never pray to you again. And done. I'll never tell anybody else in this world to have faith in God. And so I realized that that prayer was heard and answered. And that was God. And she did show her face to me. She just looked differently than what I had expected. And that's where it actually started, where then I started to really channel everything through Gaia. And I created the group on Facebook, the Galactic Federation, and wrote my first book, I Am God. And that's actually all what Mother Goddess Gaia wants humanity to know in that book. And it's what she taught me. And this is how it started. And that was 2011.
Fascinating, fascinating. We were talking a little bit, I think, before this interview about channels and messages and when things, when they come through. And I was saying it's quite interesting is usually when it's the most inconvenient time. And you were saying a little bit about that too. And you have some beings that don't look human and some other bits and pieces. Do you remember that conversation we had?
Yes, yes.
Can you touch a little bit on that? Because that would be quite interesting for people.
Yes. Yeah, well, the thing with the channeling is really that it's not going to come. There are people who say, yeah, I'm going to channel right now. Hold on. Give me your question. Now I'm going to ask them. And then they go like, it's a show. This is not real. That's not how it works. There is a veil between this world and the other world. This world has been quarantined for thousands of years, maybe even millions of years. That's not how it works. You have to really make contact to the energy itself that is needed. You have to put yourself on a very high frequency, and you can't just do that like this. And so it usually is that they come to you when they want to come to you, when they think it's time to give you some kind of a transmission or whatever you want to call that, doesn't really matter. And so for me, I told you also in our conversation last time, for me it comes when I'm running. I go outside and run in nature, and that's where I breathe, and there is beautiful nature, and nature is like always gets me super high because I love nature so much. And I feel so good when I'm outside and I see flowers and trees and birds and then whatever there is, and puts me on a super high frequency. And then in combination to that, I am breathing a lot and very deeply, and my mind is empty because I'm running, and running always completely empties my mind, and it's what works for me. There are things that work for other people. You got to see what works for you. And usually it's because, there are some things inside your mind that are right now put to rest. And that's like, for example, when they wake you up in the middle of the night, you cannot manipulate what's coming through. That part of your brain is not awake yet. And so that's where they feel like, okay, this is good time. Just let it flow. And everything else is still sleeping. But that part of you that can take note of what we're saying is woken up.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really interesting how it comes through. Then there are periods of time when nothing comes through, or just little bits and pieces, not enough to write like a 3-page essay about it. But it's different, yeah. But they are definitely there. We have a connection to them. The connection is definitely telepathic, and it's very hard to describe, as you know, most probably. But it's telepathic, and it comes. It's hard to describe. It's not like you're watching a movie or something.
I mean, the way I would describe it, I mean, for me, it's a fairly new thing. In fact, actually, it's fairly new, but it's actually quite old. I've been trying to do it for years and years and years and years. It wasn't until I gave up. I just gave up. Then it started like coming through, because it's like I dropped all my expectations. And for me, it's like you say, in the middle of the night, or when I'm having a shower or cooking something, my brain's more in theta, and suddenly it'll come through. But it's like a seed gets planted, and it's like, oh, poof, oh my God, it's like I've got this whole subject in my head, but it needs to, and then I move over to my computer and I start going like this, and this thing pours out of nowhere. So I understand. I get that. I totally get that. Yeah. Now, unless there's anything more you'd like to say about that, shall we talk a little bit about the food element? Because food, obviously, in the type of the work we do, the way we live, that kind of thing is quite important. And you've taken it upon yourself to make that, or have made that previously in your life, quite a major part of your being, what you've done. Let's touch on that a little bit. So you have a book. I think I will, while you're talking, I'll bust out a cheesy picture of you with a vegan cupcake. You've got a book called Raw Evolutionist, and I think you went. I think you went vegan for a while. It didn't work out or something, or you got ill. I can't remember. You can tell the story, but basically, as a lot of people will know, as we're going up in vibration, like a lot of red meat all the time might hinder you a little bit. Everyone's DNA, blood type obviously are different, so that some people can still eat red meat. It's not going to slow them down, but as a generalization, as a sweeping generalization. So tell us how you got into the whole food thing, how it affects your vibration, the kind of food, tell us a little bit about the book, which you can buy. And then you were doing TV stuff with food too. So do you want to touch on that? And while you're doing that, I'll get out the cheesy picture of you with your book holding a cupcake.
Yeah, so it really started because of my dad's illness that I deep dived into food and nutrition. And so that journey continued. And because I was abandoned as a child by my mother, and I was living with two male, with my dad and my brother, and so sooner or later, we all had to start learning how to cook because our dad, he was taking us to restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we couldn't see the restaurant food anymore. So he started cooking. The only thing he could make was steak, so he gave us steak every day. And I think we were the only children in the world who were begging and said, please, not again steak. Please don't give
Yeah.
us any more steaks. We can't see it anymore. And so we had to start learning how to cook. And so that's how I learned cooking at a very young age. And because for me it's an art, and I'm a very artistic person. I'm a Lyran, but also Pleiadian, Atlantean. I have a lot of creative skills, and cooking is one of those creative skills for me. And I loved it. And so I continued this passion. And then when I was in Iran, I had a little gathering in my home. I was making food, and then my friends were coming over. And then somebody was there who was working for TV. And then they said, we're actually looking for a chef who speaks English and who can do this in front of the camera. And you're perfect for that. And I didn't want to do it. So they called me, they harassed me. They called me so many times and tried to get me there to make a recording. And anyway, I got the job, and then I was doing that for a while, and was very stressful, very, very stressful with that Iranian mullah regime. And it was with full hijab, by the way,
Oh,
full
wow.
full
So
hijab.
you only just like see through a little thing while you
No, that's Saudi Arabia. We don't do that in Iran, but because it was for TV and it had to be a little bit more strict, so I had this very tight headband, and above that a scarf that was like with needles fixed to the headband, and a roller neck, and a long coat on top of it. It was really hot, 40 degrees summer Tehran, and then AC off because of the noise, and then cooking. That was very that was the toughest job I ever had.
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and then smile through the whole thing. So, yeah, that's how I became a chef. And then it was when I was in America, and right after this show, I was also really somehow disgusted by meat and chicken and all this stuff. And I just wanted to go vegetarian for a little bit. And I went vegetarian for a little bit. And then somebody mentioned something about raw veganism, and I thought that sounds really cool. And oh yeah, and then somebody else also mentioned that if you really want to like open your third eye and have a boost in your accelerated process in your spiritual journey, then maybe you want to try raw veganism for a while. And I was like, wow, this is really intriguing. And so from one day to the next, I went raw vegan. But you don't know what to eat, it's like nuts and fruits and seeds and herbs and vegetables, and then okay, what do I do now? So I started eating salads, you know, in the morning, fruit salads, green salads for lunch, vegetable salads for dinner, just salads and salads and salads. And it was really, really boring. And then I went to all kinds of chef schools, and I did all kinds of courses online and in person. So I mastered this art. And we went really, really good. So I became really good. I started to make like raw vegan chicken and meat and lasagna and all those amazing, super amazing dishes, 100 times better than any teacher who had taught me, because it was just not tasty. The technique was good, but it was not tasty what they were showing us. Most of it was really bland. Anyway, so the food was really good, and I was eating this for a few years, and I got way too thin, and then I got way too nervous, and then way too emotional, very unbalanced. But in the beginning, it's great for you. You detox, you look better, you lose weight if you need to, and you'll have lots of energy, you sleep amazing. In the beginning, it's great. I don't recommend anybody should do that longer than 3 months, depending on many different factors. If you have a condition you want to get rid of, if you are very obese, there is different reasons where you could say, okay, you could maybe do this a little longer. But usually a healthy person, yeah, you can do this for 3 months. It's going to rejuvenate you. It's going to like detox you amazingly and do a lot of good things for you, but you shouldn't do this for too long. And so I did it for years, and then I had all this pain in my body and all these problems. So I had to go again and find the right courses to learn about nutrition and raw food nutrition. And so it was a very, very long learning journey for me. But yeah, but I realized that this food is the best ascension food that you could ever think of, because this is raw food that comes from the body of Mother Earth. And you take this food, you clean it, but you do not change it, you do not process it, you do not heat it, you do not change it from its natural state of being. So the entire energy of the mother is in there. So you take the energy of the mother and you put it in your body. And this is what facilitates a quantum healing. Emotionally, mentally, physically, it will, and spiritually, it will start healing you on all these different levels. Like it's profound what happens with you. Like it changes you. Like even if anybody struggles with addiction, you know, this is a way to break through it. You do this for a few months strict, and you'll see, you'll come out of it a new person.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, I mean, I see, the thing is, everybody's blood type is different. Everybody's DNA is different. There's some people that can't go all the way, so they have to go pescatarian. So you got to mix and match a little bit. I personally don't touch anything that walks on 4 legs. If it's got a flipper, that's the only thing I play with, as in a fish. But yeah, it's interesting, and people can go and check out your book. You've got, it's called Raw Evolutionist, and then also you got your other book, I Am God.
I Am God.
Okay, so there you can check out the books. Now, a few other bits and pieces to look at. Quantum healing. Tell us about it. Tell us what you do. Tell us how you got into it. Tell us about your experiences, and what's that all about?
So there are definitely different versions of quantum healing. Quantum healing, where, you know, they teach us in this world that you are this body. This is who you are. But that's not who we are. You have a physical body, you have an emotional body, you have a mental body, you have a spiritual body, and you have an astral body. Healing, if you have a back pain, you might be going to see your doctor for the next 10 years, and you might go see several specialists all around the world without ever finding anybody who can help you. Because maybe the problem is not physical, maybe it's mental, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's spiritual. And so if you really want to heal, you have to take all of these bodies under your you know, under the eye. You have to look at all of them. You have to like really see, okay, you have to look at the person holistically. You have to say, okay, tell me, what is your job? Are you married? How many children do you have? So what did you do the last 20 years? Tell me a story. I'm sitting here, I'm listening. Tell me a story. What did you do 20 years ago? What did you do when you were 10 years old? How's life? And when did this happen? And when did it start? And what happened before this started? And there's so many things. And so sometimes, and these bodies, they are connected to each other. The emotional body is directly connected to the spiritual body. That's why many people, when they have a traumatizing event in their life and traumatizing experience, that's where they come back to their spirituality. And that's what happened to me when I had somehow put that on another shelf for some time later. I'll come back to you. Now let me just be a young person and have some fun in this 3D world. And when my father died, that pain in my emotional body made me connect back to my spiritual body, because these two are connected. So if you want to access the spiritual body, you have to do it through your emotions. Like, there are people that say, don't be emotional. If you want to be spiritual, then you'll never get angry again, and you'll never get sad again, and you'll never worry again, and you don't do any of these things, because if you're really spiritual, you don't do these things. And this is like false light. This goes into the category false light. It's exactly the opposite. The human race, one of the most precious things about being human is having all of these emotions. There are other races that do have emotions, but not to the extent that we humans have emotions. And rather than pushing them away or being afraid of them or not acknowledging them or being even ashamed of them, people are ashamed of them. They say, oh my God, I got angry again. I'm not so spiritual. No, you have to embrace this. And when the anger comes, allow it and love it and embrace it and say, okay, you are here and I am a raging bitch right now, and that's okay. That's part of my experience. But let me deep dive into this and see, what is it trying to teach me? What are you trying to show me? Where is the gift? Because there's always a gift. There's always a blessing, and you always have to find the blessing. It does not matter if you're super passionate, super angry, whatever it is. These are emotions. We only have two feelings: this love and fear. Everything else is an emotion. Now, this emotion either stems from fear or from love. You have to scrutinize this. You have to analyze this. You have to deep dive into it. For that, you have to embrace it. But if you say, no, the emotion is here, that's bad, you're closing yourself off. You'll never find out why it came, what it was trying to show you, and the wealth, the depth of the wealth that could be, the treasure that could be found within it, is going to be closed off because you said, no, I'm not allowed to be emotional. So this is, with the emotional and the spiritual body. And then we have the mental body that is directly connected to the physical body. So people who have a very negative mindset, they usually develop things like ulcers, digestive issues, and so on. It could be anything really, but that's really, it comes from your mindset and the way that you think and the way that the things that you believe. So quantum healing tries to find out, where is the blockage? There is a blockage somewhere. Now, is it in your emotional body? Is it in your mental body? Is it in your spiritual body? Where is the blockage? And then we address that blockage. And for everybody, you can be your own healer. We all are our own healers. It's just that we have to remember, and we need the tools, of course. And one of the major tools is raw food, really. And that's so simple. You could do it right now in your home. Just eat an apple instead of bread, a slice of bread or a cheese toast or whatever. You can have an apple and a banana instead of that, and a few nuts, and it's going to fill you up and give you even more energy. And so quantum healing, it includes tools and techniques and methods that address not one but several of the emotional of the different sacred bodies that we have: the emotional, the physical, mental, spiritual, and astral body. And then That facilitates the real healing.
Okay, magical, fantastic. Our hour is nearly up, believe it or not. I can't believe where the time has gone. I feel like we've just been talking for 5 minutes. So I want to finish up with some final questions. A little bit on anything to think about on coming things that are coming, or the Galactic Federation news, or anything we should be thinking about, anything the Galactic Federation are up to, or anything you want to finish on general.
Yes, very important actually. Kitty, you have to give me a moment. He wants my attention. So many people. There's one question that I've been hearing for over a decade, and it keeps repeating itself. And especially lately, I feel the overall energy on the planet is a little demoralized because many were having their eyes, including myself, we're all having our eyes on the US elections and on the President Trump and the white hats and this and that. And not to deny any of that, that has its space. We were not wrong. There's just so many things involved. So many different things and so many different dimensional levels and so many different dimensional beings involved. Sometimes things don't go the way we think they might go. And then how do we know what they're going to do? They're not going to let us know. If they let us know, others will know. But people always say, why do they not come and save us? Because this is your planet. This is our planet. We're here on this planet. We have elected those who are abusing us. We have given consent. That consent, we were tricked to be given. No doubt. Still, nonetheless, it was given, and we have to take it back. This is our empowerment of a race. When you want to wait for somebody or some being or the Galactic Federation or the Trump administration, it does not matter. Give it a name. There are others who think Biden is the great savior. Well, let them have that. I don't care. I really don't care what anybody thinks. Anybody is free to think whatever they want to. We'll never know what's really behind it and who's really right. Maybe in 10 years we'll all see things differently. But if we wait for any other being to save us, we are doing the same error, the same mistake over and over again. We're giving our power away. And this, what's happening on this planet right now, is our empowerment as a race. And this empowerment starts by me saying, no. I don't drink tap water. I'll drink spring water. No, I'm not giving you my signature. No, I'm not giving you my money. No, I'm not doing this. No, I'm not going to go and stand in line.
I'm not going to give you my arm. Don't say the words. I don't want to get blocked off YouTube, but I'm not giving you my arm.
Exactly. I'm not going to go stand in line and let you do that to me. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving my power away. I don't live in fear. Just don't live in fear and don't make other people responsible for your life. You are responsible. I always say, that's also what the I Am God book is about. That's why it's called I Am God, because I am the God of my universe. I am the creator of my reality. And when you create a reality, that makes you a God. That is the definition of a God. This is why I am God. I'm not the only God. We're all gods. Everybody is God in a body, which is very good news. But on the other side, it might be very bad news because it means you have to take on responsibility and nobody's going to save you. God is not going to save you. God can assist you, can guide you, can even protect you. They can show you the way, and they do help. They do everything they can in their dimension. They're not physical here. In the non-physical, they're helping and they're doing everything. But this is something they really want everybody to know, that we are doing our part. We do not ask you to have faith in us. We're not telling you to have faith in us. And whether you do have faith in us or not, it doesn't change the fact that we're still doing our part, because we're also not the great saviors who only want to save you because you're so cute and we're so kind. No, it's because the entire universe is at stake. Planet Earth must ascend, and this is a divine plan. And when we say trust the plan, this is the plan we're talking about. It's a divine plan. It's God's plan. Come. Oh, And so this is really the message that the Galactic Federation really wants me to deliver. That's really important. To take on responsibility, put that laziness away. There is a great spiritual laziness on this planet. Spirituality is not another escape mechanism. Don't use it as an escape mechanism. It's not escapism. It's about actually taking on responsibility, becoming a responsible human, understanding you are very powerful. And with understanding how powerful you are comes responsibility. And now go out and create. And let me see, how do you create? Every thought, every word, every action has ripples. And everybody's also my job. I don't want to say your job like to anybody. I want to say our job because it's also my job. For every single one of us is really to observe ourselves and raise the awareness. And what does that mean? It means become aware of what are you thinking right now? What are you saying? What are you doing? How do you act? Your deeds, your words, all of these. Check them. And they need to be fine-tuned. And when you're fine-tuned, keep on fine-tuning. And that's really, I think that's really the bottom line. And that's really, if we all become responsible spiritual beings living in a physical body, understanding that we're gods, that we're very powerful, and that we really observe ourselves, self-reflection, look into the mirror. What do you see? Can you even find yourself in there? You know, some people, they can't even find themselves in there. And so these are the things really. Instead of looking outside, let them, they're doing their job. They are already doing their job, and we have to do our jobs too.
Okay, magical. I like that. Very, very eloquent, very articulate, very nice, very lovely. Okay, look, you've got a cat to feed, guys. If you like what you saw, go downstairs and in the comments and share some comments. Let us know how much you like this. Aurora, it's been magical talking to you. You're a very lovely, glamorous, articulate lady. For people that don't know, she speaks 5 languages. That's absolutely incredible. And she's about to speak the language of food because you've got a very hungry cat. So, so this is this will be. I hope maybe we'll do it again sometime. But it's been really magical and it's been nice to see the face behind the website. And I will speak soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexander. It was lovely hanging out with you. I enjoyed every second.